Hi all, welcome back to Baldy's Battles of Miniature. It's been a rather long wait, as I'm sure many of you have been devastated by my lack of content over recent years. Um, Laziness, breakage of PC, and other interests jumped in, and I thought it was about time I got back in. So, what we decided is that I thought I'd put a thought on. Me and a couple of chums have been playing DBA by Skype or Zoom or WhatsApp last night actually, which seems to work really well for a DBA format on a small force, small table. It's really easy for one person to set it up. The other person can view it over whatever media you're using. Um, you have to be a little bit kind with your opponent. Saying, well, if you just move that a millimetre forward, you'd be able to um, put him in the flank of my force rather than say, well, what a shame you only moved in that far. Now I can flank you and destroy you. So me and Terry had a game. Now I've for a long time wanted to do some kind of an ambush. It won't take a military genius to work out, or a historical genius to work out that this is loosely based on another Roman disaster. Um, I also come from a place called Swinton in South Yorkshire, so the local towns of the area have a good spirited rivalry with each other, as you would probably get in every area of the world. So some of the names may be known to people who live in and around the Swinton area. So this is what I read out to Terry before we started. So you are Publius quite Simplius Gullibus. A revolt has broken out in the Mexbrati region. This must be crushed promptly before the tribes of Conisbrius and the terrible Denibirium, well known for their love of warfare, decide to join in. Many of your forces have been depleted, heading off to quell unrest caused by the Brixati, Corvidus, Annus Horribilis. Mexbrati is a wasteland, quite literally, of overgrown forests, ore smelteries, and cesspits. There's a safe route running through Wafatis, wide open spaces and solid footing, with many well-provisioned storage camps. This was your first choice of route. However, your most trusted confidant, Astorius Backstabius, has let you into a secret. There's a much faster route through the slightly wooded area of Swintax. The area is well known for its peaceful citizens, good climate, easy women, easier men, and a single main road not at all difficult to move down. You have decided to take the route and feel perfectly fine about it, with no qualms whatsoever. Your engineering section has prepared a map, and Astorius has kindly sent his cavalry to scout the road and reports that it is absolutely clear all the way. So happy as Larry, you and your merry band head off full of confidence. So this is the battle I set up. Now, obviously, it's loosely based on DBA. You'd never be able to have that many woods on it. And what we've got is we've got a road running through the middle of the board. Romans need to get from one side to the other side, and everything else is wood apart from the open spaces. So, obviously, I may have been reading up on Roman military disasters beforehand, and I thought to place it there just to make sure Terry was fully aware of what his role needed to be in this game. So, did deployment a little differently as well. I think Rick Priestley in Hail Caesar came up with an ambush. I think it was Rick Priestley anyway. Came up with an ambush scenario whereby the Roman forces were all numbered to a corresponding playing card. Playing card was shuffled, they were chosen, and you put units down based on that. So the Romans didn't really know what marching order they were in. So we decided to do that. We had a full suit of cards with a joker in it as well. So what I did is if the joker over 2 was placed, it meant there was a gap in the Roman column, and I put one column on the road and one column just to the right of it because I didn't want the Romans to be too far stretched down the road at the beginning of the game. So the Romans, now the lovely, beautifully painted Romans are something I picked up at Derby many years ago. I got an absolutely bargain deal from a bring and buy, 40 quid for tons of Roman infantry, which is absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, the gent I bought them from said, "Oh, I think I've got some cavalry under here somewhere." And my heart stopped. I thought, blimey, if I can get the cavalry for this as well, this is unbelievable. And I shall never have to buy any Romans ever again. Unfortunately, his wife then said, "Oh, actually, I've just sold them 5 minutes ago." So there is somebody in the UK potentially who's got the matching cavalry box for this infantry box, who's presumably wishing that he had a load of infantry to go with them, and I'm certainly wishing that I had a load of cavalry and the artillery and all the odd bits that went with it as well. So obviously I've got a couple of boxes of Corvus Belli DBA Romans to do, which I've not painted up. So there's a mix in here of really well painted ones, completely unpainted figures. So the obviously the black ones are undercoated, and there's some really strange cavalry that I've got from somewhere that are minute. So the brilliant figures. I've got loads of chariots and all sorts, but they're just not right to scale with Corvus Belli and Forged in Battle kind of figures, which is what I like. You know, bigger, chunkier ones. The ancient British in their garish colours are one that I painted, and they were actually the first army I painted when I got into Ancients Wargaming. Somebody sold me a 12 stand DBA Greek army and hooked me immediately from the first second I played it. So I went out and ordered a DBA British army and a DBA Roman army. Then I ordered several more DBA British armies and loads more barbarians. Went absolutely mental, painted them all up in probably 3 months. I was so excited, and then for some reason never got interested in doing the Romans, and they're still unfortunately sitting there in various unpainted colours. I've since bought loads more Romans because we were doing Hail Caesar at the time, and you needed fairly big units. Um, Most people have stopped playing Hail Caesar now, as we're playing a lot more Art de Guerre and DBA, although we do still play Hail Caesar from time to time. So I really need to get on and get the Romans done. So we use the cards to put Terry's force on the road. Now, his general obviously very bravely decided to advance forward with a couple of units of Legion and leave a gap between him and the rest of his forces. The British then came on, and basically I put them wherever I wanted. I did say that it was probably not a good idea to put me within 3 of the Romans so that I couldn't charge them on the first turn. That seemed even more unfair than the entire battle was going to be anyway. And Terry obviously clearly was up for a really tough time. How tough he didn't realise, because clearly I had no intention of letting him win. So there we go. Terry obviously started to deploy. Now, Terry's objective, he needed to get off the table, but still in his mind, he also thought that by defeating 4 stands of British, he'd also win the game. Not necessarily what I'd planned, but he decided, right, I'm in a forest, I'm just about to be attacked, I've got a bit of open space, I might as well form up a battle line by myself sometime and see what happens. British decided to go in, all gung-ho. Obviously, we do like to get stuck into the Legion, and the rest of the British force just sort of started moving up. This is a couple of turns in because I said I couldn't charge on the first turn. Clearly, the British did as well as warband armies always do in DBA, and got beaten back. Now, surprisingly, they didn't die, which is usually what happens. I have been to several tournaments and taken my ancient British because I absolutely love them, and I've done terribly, terribly badly with them. Even when I managed to roll really successfully and put 3 woods and a bad going BUA on, I still get slaughtered every time. And I don't see, well, there's probably much better DBA players than me out there that can make warband work, but so far I've yet to see it. Terry continued to deploy and started to send his cavalry ready to go down the road and work out what was down there. He's got Legion and auxiliary forming up on one side of the road, and then he sent his commander with some more forces to watch out to see what the British were doing on the other side. This one's me just moving up a few more forces. I was getting a bit worried that these auxiliary were going to be able to start to get round the flank of my British, so I decided to move them into the wood. Now, unfortunately, obviously, I like to send warband through wood, seeing as I don't get any penalties to fighting or penalties to moving. But of course, it does have command and control challenges, as it drops me command of my boss down to 4 base whips. Now, Terry positioned his forces on the road and in the open and had no intention of going into the wood with a legion. And obviously, every time they beat my warband back, the blades won't advance because they won't advance into bad going, which meant that Terry had a really easy command and control, and I started to suffer really badly from it. Terry sent his cavalry round through gaps in between some of the less dense wooded areas, starting to pin my cavalry because he thought my light horse were going to be able to come down the road and get into the flank of his legion. And he decided, sod this, I'm not being ambushed, so he decided to advance, ready to attack me. And he's got some archers moving up, which are eastern archers rather than western archers, because that's just what happened to be bought. So obviously these guys are probably a little chilly in the British region in their skirts. Got some light horse from Terry that started moving up as well. There's not quite enough of a gap between that legion and the wood in the centre of the table, but if you turn your base sideways, which you're allowed to with a single base move in DBA, you can slip through and then start to get around. And it looked like the Rome was actually starting to envelop me, and my ambush wasn't going as well as I'd anticipated. Here the Siloid move through the auxiliary. They want to start getting involved, and there's another unit of auxiliary right to the left-hand side of the board that starts to move down it. So my British were actually in danger of getting flanked, and Terry continued to roll 5s and 6s for his pips, and I was rolling 1s after 1s after 1s. Well, actually, Terry was rolling them, but he was doing me the favour of rolling it on the WhatsApp that we were using for this, because this was set up at my house. So he was using WhatsApp, and he was rolling the dice, but he was kindly rolling them on view of the camera, so I knew he wasn't cheating. He just somehow managed to get a British dice that was absolutely terrible and a Roman dice that was absolutely amazing. My British light horse decided to back off, no intention of facing up to the cavalry particularly, as if the cavalry had hit him in the flank and knocked him back, which is quite possible. The light horse would have been just in the wood, giving him a penalty. The Roman cavalry wouldn't have been in the wood. That would have made it even worse for me. And I finally get some pips, so obviously I do what the British do, and I decide to charge in. I don't need to flank the Romans, or whatever it's called. I can never remember what you call it when you give them an hard flank. But if Warband beat Romans, we quick kill them anyway, so I just had to outscore them. Managed to get a couple of Warband in the open, supporting each other as well, just to give me a little bit more of an advantage. Clearly jumped to slide, as I'm wont to do, so rather than show you the outcome, the auxiliary have just moved round to start putting some pressure on my British. The Romans charged, that's right, the Romans charged the light horse, and the archers came up and formed up. Now, obviously the archers can shoot at this stand of British because they're within arc, and there's less than half a base width of wood between the shooting area, so they can hit me in the side here. On the road, the light horse die immediately, so things are going great as the British forces start to die already. But miracle of miracles, we also managed to kill one of the Roman blades, so at least I'd managed to get a point to start. In this one now, the auxiliary move up and flank the British, which obviously turn to face in a minute. Possibly shown on video, possibly not. Who knows with my battle reports. And the ancient British in the wood get hit by the archers and recoil. So auxiliary managed to beat the warband and backed them off, I believe. Quite possibly what happened. I think it is based on the position of where they are. These guys took another pot shot but didn't do anything. Obviously, some of you who like to see structured battle reports and know the exact turn sequence are possibly a little bit disappointed, as my battle reports seem to be more about the occasion and the joy of wargaming than actually strict, cohesive battle reports. So this is just a random picture. Actually, it's the unit of Legion turned around and started going down now that the British had started to break through. And the light horse came over to cover because I think Terry was worried that my British in the wood were going to start to sally out and potentially try and get hold of his commander. Romans had another really good couple of turns of shooting, actually. So nearly every time the shot, they bounce these guys back. I think I've got one more recoil before I'm out of range of the archers, but there's also only 2 more recoils before I'm completely off the board. So if they keep advancing, there's a very good possibility he's going to shoot me off the board. The guys over in this wooded area were actually deliberately placed here not to be too strong. I was hoping that Terry was going to sort of be guided. There's more of a gap through the woods up here, or so it looks. And I was hoping that Terry was going to be trying to get off the battle, but he was having so much time slaughtering warband that he never had any intention of trying to get off the table. Warband going again. Obviously can't support in this, but I thought it was better to have the extra warband behind so that if the first one dies, at least the Romans aren't able to turn and start to get into the flanks and the other stuff. Whoopsie-doo. Unit of warband gets shot and killed by the archers this time. So these little stands I made with little skulls on the location markers for when you're trying to do some fiddly movements or measure distances. And in these battle reports are pretty good to put down when a unit dies because it's really clear to show what happened and where they were. And I really like them. So there. So on this one, Terry rolled a 1. Now, he didn't know, but the first turn Terry rolled a 1, Astorius Backstabius, which is the Roman cavalry, would prove to be traitors. And I actually got to move them. Not only that, but as he moved out of the way, he'd been scouting for the Romans and neglected to tell them that the road was actually blocked. So there's actually in effect, it's a wooded area, which is it's not, we can defend it. I decided it was going to be like a camp, so I could defend it like a camp, although I've got nobody defending it. But you can move through it, you can get through it, or it was open, going to be forcing the Romans to move through the woods, which would have slowed them down and given them penalties, or move them into the open area on the other side of the table, which is what my actual hope was, but that never actually turned out. So I moved the cavalry, which then became one of my figures. And at this point, Terry realised it obviously clearly wasn't ever going to be a normal DBA game, but I was certainly stacking the odds more and more in my favour. Clash here, the Romans and British doing what Romans and British do, standing up to each other, and one or the other getting slaughtered, which invariably is the British. So here we go. Starts the crumble. Not only have I lost light horse and I've lost some warband on the other side, I've now lost another warband to the blades, and they still don't advance because if they did, there's just a corner would go into the woods. So not only did they kill me, but they still managed to stay in a really good formation, not impede themselves. And it's just as lucky that I put that, well, I say lucky, it was tactical genius, that I put that warband behind them, knowing that these Romans would kill me, and at least I've got something else backing me up. Yippee managed to kill another legion though, so things weren't going completely in the Romans' way. And at this point, it was starting to look like the British were going to be able to start envelop these guys, and get more and more bonus points for getting behind them. If I can get on the flank and the rear to give myself all the negatives to the Romans, I don't need to hard flank them to kill them. Obviously, I just need to beat them. But if I could start to get things behind these Romans and hit them from the front, the rear, and the flank, then obviously they've got a lot of penalties, which potentially means I've got more chance of killing them. Although again, Terry was rolling superbly. Not necessarily for his deployment pips, however, he continued to roll. I think he rolled 5 or 6 twos in a row for pips, but when it came to combat, superb. I've just noticed there's some bent spears and a bent standard on my British, and there's one thing I really despise, it's bent spears and a bent standard. So here we go, the classic baldy image, completely out of focus. There always has to be a couple in there. It takes me a long time to get the camera set up to just such a way that I can take this picture. It would be much easier to take an in-focus picture with modern technology, but I like to get this old classic look. So yet another unit of warband has been destroyed, and now things are starting to look tough. Now, if you'll notice on the top left-hand side of the picture, there's some warband appeared and some light horse. So this was all my dead pile. However, as I started to put them on the table, Terry started to have a sinking feeling yet again that not only was I making sure that the table was stacked in my favour with all the trees, not only was I putting blocks on the road, not only was Backstabius proving to come over to my side, but it now looked as though I was going to get constant reinforcements. Again, they've been put on this side with the hope of pushing the Romans through a gap that I'd prepared. Again, it never happened, but now Terry was realising that the chances of the Romans making it out of the woods were slim. Although they have killed another warband, so probably not that slim. Roman commander decides to get stuck in now. Notice the Roman standard is also bent as well, so got a little bit of work to do on these guys. And the archers, they've decided that the British on this side are basically useless and not doing anything, so the archers have come over to lend a hand, particularly if this cavalry starts to get joined in. And I was rolling so badly, I really actually wanted to get these guys out of the woods, but because they were in a wood, they were so far away from the commander, it was going to cost me multiple pips to move them, and I never actually ended up having enough. I constantly had to use the few pips I had to reposition my guys to stop the Romans on this side from absolutely destroying me. On this one now, the Siloi start to come in, so the auxiliary and the Siloi are coming up, ready to sandwich my warband, which obviously was going to mean I was going to lose even more guys over it. So if I'd not had these reinforcements going, clearly I've already lost the battle technically in a DBA sense, without, even though I've tried to stack it as much as I possibly can to allow me to win, Terry's still beating me heck out of me. So, but obviously these reinforcements are going to start to come on now. Another out of focus picture, we'll gloss over that. Now I made the stunning tactical move here of moving my general stand completely into the wood. Now those of you who play DBA, it's not that my commander's command radius drops to 4 base whips for being in a wood. Everything costs an extra pip. So other than his movement, everything cost me an extra pip, because everybody's considered to be out of command range of me. Which meant when I was rolling really badly, I couldn't actually move anybody. And Terry was just able to roll so well, he was completely outmaneuvering me. My warband at the top, I've actually started to move though. I moved those whilst I was still out of the wood to get them coming up, because I need to put some pressure on this auxiliary. In this one, I think the Roman slingers couldn't actually get into the flank of my warband because my boss had put them in a threat zone, so he just sent his other auxiliary up to give me a negative. Managed to beat them back, but unlike Blades, obviously auxiliary are better at fighting warband, so I just knocked them off. Although, to be fair, the guys were looking over the shoulder at the British advancing towards them. I don't know why they were worrying, And here, British going again. This is it. I really need to get rid of some of these legions so that I can exploit the gaps. Otherwise, I've had it, I think. Terry decided to. No, I think I charged his auxiliary and forced him to turn to me. Um, I wanted to separate him from the colleagues so that I could start to pick him apart a little. But yet again, because I've split all my force up into so many pieces, and my boss is still in a wood, which I never actually moved him back out of a wood because I wanted to move him out of a wood so that everybody else would be slightly easier to command. But because I rolled so badly, I desperately needed my boss there to stop the Romans breaking through. So I never actually managed to move him back out again. Uh, Blades beat the warband back and just knock them off. Obviously, it's not hard when blades overlap the warband. We're usually fighting on a 4-2 or sometimes a 5-2, or there were some cases when it was a 5-1, which doesn't give warband that much of a chance. Continue up here, so we're just moving up and putting some extra negatives on his auxiliary. Beat them back, but the auxiliary were amazing. The auxiliary were actually doing just as well as the Legion, winning battles. The archers never seemed to miss, and they were doing a cracking job killing off things. The Silai, I think, even at one point, we're looking at thinking of charging my boss. I thought, well, if everybody else is doing it, we might as well have a crack. On this side, the Romans form up into a battle line and I form up. Neither of us wants to go in piecemeal. We want to make sure we can stack the odds as much in his favour as possible. The auxiliary go in and decide, well, there's no point messing around. We might as well go and take the fight to the British. And here we go. This is it. The Siloi. Now I'm fairly certain. No, we didn't move them here. This is right. So the Siloi decided to charge me boss. Now I must admit it's one rule I'm not 100% sure. Well, I say rule, seeing as we clearly weren't playing it by any rules. I know Siloi can recoil through possible. I'm fairly certain Siloi can recoil through things, although now I might be thinking we can only recoil through blades, and these are auxiliary. But I think you have to recoil through and end up on the other side. Now, for these to recoil through, they'd have to go through the auxiliary and then through some blades, which obviously wouldn't give them enough room. So I'm not actually sure we could, but we did say they could do that, so there wasn't that much to fear. And Jenny thought, right, sod it. Everybody's slaughtering the British, so even the silo decided to get stuck in and charge my boss. Didn't beat them. Here we go. Because we'd put so much stuff in my favour, I couldn't work out whether you could recoil through, so I just decided to call him and move him over to the side a little bit, which seemed reasonable. Terry'd been a great sport in allowing me to put on this completely one-sided battle anyway, so I didn't really seem it unfair to give him a few opportunities. Auxiliary still hanging around. There's still a couple of units of British in this wood that never move for the entire game. The archers have got fed up, so they've decided to go over and wait for the now British cavalry to come and join in so that they can do some pot shots at them. A stunning movement of this clash of forces as the Roman general actually went in against the ancient British. He had no fear whatsoever. Unlike his historical self, he had no intention of dying in this wood, and he wanted to make sure as many British as possible did. So he actually went in and decided to take the fight to the British. Got a bit of a stalemate. I think he won and beat me back, but then on my move, I moved the warband back in. And then move the cavalry round onto his flank is how I believe it happened. Otherwise, it's impossible, because if he'd have drawn me, I'd have knocked off, and if I'd have beat him, he'd have died. So, but I think that's what happened. Unfortunately, the Romans coming in there have exposed at least half of their base to the archers, so the archers are going to be able to take a pot shot at this cavalry now. Warband in the wood decide that as Siloi are even able to beat them, or not beat them, but they can't kill Siloi, in a good old straight up fight, they've decided the best form a new wall of anger ready to come forward. Fortunately, if I'm able to move everybody, I need like sixes because it's like, 2 for the first one, 2 for the second one. So it's 5 just to move all 3 of those bases again because my general is in there, and I can't move as a group unless I'm in a column in the wood. So I'm playing completely stupidly, but I was having a great time. And as it happens, despite trying my hardest to put everything in the British favour. I didn't want it to be too much in the British favour because obviously you've always got to have a good game. There's no point in having a slaughter if you've not had a good game. But this game was set out to be amazing. There were so many things happening on such a simple game that it was a laugh a minute. And as I said, Terry's dice rolling was amazing. So he knocked me warband back and then he advanced. That's definitely what happened on this one. But now I've obviously got him overlapped on both sides, given a couple of penalties. I only have to beat him. I thought, yeah, this is it. We've definitely going to grab him here. Roman Legion decided to go in, even though they were a negative. Terry knew he couldn't possibly lose any combat he went into because of how he was rolling dice. So he even decided to put himself with a -2 penalty with no fear of my warband whatsoever. Archers move up, take some pot shots at this cavalry. And lo and behold, despite giving himself penalties, the Roman Legion managed to kill another unit of warband. So my guys are absolutely getting slaughtered, and they're wondering when the slaughter of the Romans is actually going to begin. Archers get pushed back, and the warband then lose the combat. So again, this Roman general is rock hard. On this one, these Siley had actually moved back enough so that I wasn't in a threat zone of them. It doesn't quite look like it from this image, but I wasn't. So these guys moved over, deciding to come in and try and do this auxiliary. I thought if I could punch through the auxiliary and start to get on the flanks of things, I might still just have a chance to get hold of these guys. Romans pulled back and formed up. Decided there's no point chasing after British through woods and getting flanked by everything. We'll form back up into a fighting formation. We're doing really well. We're holding his own, and we're probably going to start to make his way up the road or move through this gap to get out. The British keep coming on from this side, so I was fairly sure if I could keep pumping British in from this side, it would eventually force Teddy to start moving back or knocking him back. Otherwise, he risked being massacred. Well, I say massacred, it's me who's been massacred at a minute. And here we decided you've got to go for it. So Astorius Backstabius decides to go in against the Publius quite Simplius Gullibus, who proves to be the most astute tactician in the world, and has obviously clearly led his Romans into a wood in order to ambush the ancient British. So, but these guys decided they had to have a fight. Now, obviously, the odds are still in the Blade's favour, because he's overlapping me. Don't think a Blade can kill cavalry. Would make him flee, and I have still got room to flee round there. But where things were going, there was no way I'd be able to get out of this. Although actually, to be 100%, that's a very good question. I should really check the rule book. I'm fairly certain blades and spears can't kill cavalry. They just make them flee. However, we didn't need to worry about it because I knocked the general back, and I've managed to put him in a wood. So finally, he's in a wood. So he's on some penalties. We may just get him yet. Nope, he runs back in, flanks me with some Silai and kills me. So all my thoughts about whether he could kill cavalry or not don't matter at all because he managed to flank me with his silo. If I'd have left me commander there, his silo wouldn't have had the opportunity to turn because I'd had to move forward slightly, which put him in. So not only have I managed to kill off Astorius Backstabius, but I've pretty much allowed them to do it as well. In this one, my warband. Actually, I don't think I do go in. I think the Roman auxiliary go in. The Romans have decided this is it. Nothing they can do is going to cause them to die. So I think they actually send everybody in on charge here. I managed to finally kill off an auxiliary, which, if I can now start to get around the flank and start to get rid of these auxiliary and then move into the blades, things are going to start to finally look tough for the Romans. So he moves off his other auxiliary to come over. He knows it's going to expose his flank, but he knows I've got such bad pit rolls and I've made a real hash of putting my general in this wood that the auxiliary at the sort of bottom left of the picture next to that skull have moved over from they were keeping the other British that were in this other woods on the opposite side of the table occupied. The chances of me ever getting enough pips to move them is slim indeed. So he's quite happy to expose the rear of his entire army to me, knowing that there's almost no chance I can come out that wood. My British start to do some advancing on this side. You know, chance of me killing off his general is slim. I've have to roll. You know, I'm not even sure even if I roll a 6-1. I don't think on a 6-1 I can kill him. But you know, you've got to put some pressure on him, haven't you? And the blades, obviously, they so fearless that the blades decide to move into the woods as well. What the heck? We get quick killed by warband, but who cares? We're overlapping the British. We'll go into a wood, give ourselves a penalty, because Terry's got the most loaded dice in the world. I think he's going to make a little shrine for it once this game's finished. Pushes back a unit of warband. Obviously, started to get a bit worried for my boss now, as he's on some negative. Well, to be fair, the auxiliary is also on a negative for the other British flanker on the side. Obviously, it's a bit difficult with all these bases to line them up. They were all lined up, or as close as we could be bothered, so they are actually in line to line with each other. And on this one, I think it's after another couple of rounds of combat. So one of my warband has died, and the general has pushed back the auxiliary. Now, this really, really is very bad because I think I must have charged him there because I wouldn't have been able to follow up the auxiliary because I don't follow up in bad going. If I did, more fool me, although it was getting a bloodlust in the game, so who cares? But now it means that with this auxiliary facing me to front and these blades just about turn around from, oh, I'm sure people will tell me that that's impossible, that the movement distances probably mean in a wood you haven't got enough movement to turn around. But again, as I say, you know, the weak grip on the rules didn't really matter in this game. It was all about having fun, and that's what we're doing. I am fairly certain from many threads that it's actually impossible with one movement to get enough movement to turn around and hit them, because you're moving slightly more than one, and you can only move one in a wood. I may be proven wrong, but I'm fairly certain. I'm sure Stevie, if he ever sees this, will confirm whether I'm right or wrong. He knows the rules infinitely better than I ever will. Here, the auxiliary get pushed back, and I cleverly remember I don't pursue, so I think I probably did get it right last time. I don't pursue because obviously I don't pursue when I'm in bad going. And here you go. I had to take a picture. This is my what I do is when I set this table up, I have a tripod for a video camera set up that I hang my Galaxy tablet off, so that Terry can view the battle, which works really well. It gives it a great view, almost straight down onto it, of a little bit of an angle. I really don't like straight down views. I like a little bit of an angle on my games. but I had to take some pictures. This was constantly. Telly was rolling the red dice for Romans. I had the blue dice, and constantly 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. It was devastating rolling, and Terry was laughing his head off. Auxiliary go back in. Um, why not? We got nothing to fear. The British clearly don't know how to fight, so we'll go on and take on the British warband leader. Knocking back this time. And then this one we definitely got wrong. There's absolutely no way those Romans would have been able to get around the side there. But it really didn't matter. I said, look, this is going so badly for the British. Clearly, if this warband leader dies, these British are out of it. They've lost so many of the forces. The Roman generals still, I think they'd still only lost like a couple of blade, or maybe a blade and an auxiliary. The cavalry can't really claim as a loss because he just came over to my side. So they were doing amazing. They had reserves still behind, ready to come in. None of them had even thought about trying to escape off the board. Why bother? We'll just sit here and slaughter everything that comes to us. And this was looking like it was going to be the death of my warband. Auxiliary in the front, Blades managed to get around and flank, which definitely wouldn't have been able to do as I now remember. Looking at the picture from the previous picture, there's no way they'd have enough movement to do this in a wood. But it really didn't matter. And this was just turning into an awesome game. I've never had such fun in a DBA game as this. Well, sort of DBA-ish anyway. And there you go. British warband leader dies. So I said, look, Terry, that's it. Obviously, the British are completely disheartened and decided this was the worst idea they've ever had. From now on, they're never going into us. They've decided they're only going to fight the Romans in the open from now on. And they're never ever going to try to ambush anybody ever again. In fact, many of them are considering laying down the weapons and going asking if they can join the Romans anyway. If the Romans don't crucify them all, that is. So with that, it proved to be an absolutely awesome game. Arminius Backstabius getting killed by the Roman general that had led into the woods to get slaughtered. Um, I'm sure, as I say, the Romans maybe lost a couple of blade and an auxiliary, and British had lost count how many because I was recycling them. I must have lost 8 stands or more, or it felt like that anyway. And it was just absolutely amazing. It went on for so long as well that my tablet had started to run out of power. Terry's phone had started to run out of power, so we were both on low power settings, which means it dulls the screen so we could hardly see what was happening. Which was, oh, night must be coming. And we were hoping that we'd get the battle finished before one or the other of us cut off, which was leading to the final, what felt like the awesome climax of this thing. The inevitable disaster and slaughter in the woods absolutely did happen. Unfortunately, unpredictably, it was the ancient British. So I had set up a table full of woods. I'd put special markers to block the road so they couldn't use it. I'd organised that Astorius Backstabius would defect to the ancient British. Um, Hopefully another picture had taken a bit. I'd actually organised the second barricade that was going to go up because I thought the Romans might start to try and just make it through. And the Romans had none of it. The Romans thought, right, sorry, this is it. We're just going to go in. Now, I think possibly one thing I maybe ought to have done is that I said something like that, the only way the Romans can win is if the general and, maybe 4 stands or something make it off the table, which would either force the Roman to keep moving and trying to get his general and some units off, which might split him up from the rest of his force, or put some added pressure on it at least and say, look, no matter what you do, these British are just going to keep coming back. But it felt right, and I didn't really. Well, you won't be surprised to those who know me. A lot of this we never planned at all. We just sort of made up on the hoof as we were going on. I think if the Romans had been doing amazingly, I'd have put a few bits from the British. If the British had been doing amazingly, I wouldn't have necessarily penalised them because I'm all for an interesting game here. I really don't know how to make an ambush game work. You don't want to make the ambush completely one-sided, so that the person getting ambushed is automatically slaughtered. What's the point in playing that kind of game? It's pretty clear what's happening. I think the guys on Little Wars TV did a great one where Hannibal came on, because they told the players that they were playing one game, and then halfway through told one side that that's not the game they were playing, and Hannibal led a decent ambush out, which did come as a big surprise. That was a really good way of doing it. I think ours worked. I think for the DBA, I'm really impressed with how the game went. Clearly, I'd have loved it if I'd have slaughtered the Romans, but that was never going to be with those dice rolls. And the main thing is, me and Terry both had a really, really good game. So much so that it inspired me to do the first battle report. I think I've put on for like 2.5 years. I've got loads of battle reports that I need to write up and put on. And this really infused me. So we only played it last night, and I've already put it up. So that shows how great a game I had. And I can only say thanks very much, Terry. Not only has he kept me sane during lockdown by playing games with a couple of other guys who've been joining in as well. But he very kindly agreed to be led into a slaughter on this, and then turned the tide massively on me, and destroyed me. So it was a really, really good game. This last one is a picture of what I was hoping the battle would actually be like. So just to the top right-hand side of my spangly movement marker. The reason it's spangly is I had my name boldly put on when somebody cut these for me. And somebody accused me of going over the top as been a show off by having Baldy put on. So the next time I played him, I'd bejazzled it and put as many sticky jewels as I could onto it as well. So just to the top right of that movement was what actually is my British camp. And I put it in my scap. So the whole idea, I wanted the Romans to come down the road, realise there was a blockage between these two little mini woods, see that there was an open gap on one side where there was less British, to start pulling them down so that they'd think, we've got it here, we've found a way out. These British aren't going to be able to catch us, we can get through. Then get stuck up against this fortification, which is my understanding of what actually did happen. The Germans had built an impassable barricade part through the woods, and as the Romans thought they had a way out, they ended up getting crushed up against it, which is partly what led to the slaughter. Um, Clearly, these Romans, this was never going to happen, and my British never stood a chance. So, as you can see, I've changed the Roman military disasters to British military disasters, which is exactly what it felt like. But as I say again, this was an absolutely amazing game. Really enjoyed it. Definitely want to do this kind of thing again, and put some kind of non-standard DBA games in. And I'm hoping that when the world starts to get to rights and we actually start to meet up and play face to face again, we can have some other, really interesting games. So thanks anybody who's made it as far as the end of the year. I apologise to the wargaming enthusiasts, the military history enthusiasts, and the DBA enthusiasts who've seen me ride roughshod over all they love. But as I say, which I must have said 50 times on this, the main thing for me, both players have a game that they enjoy, have a right good laugh, and I don't care whether I win or lose him then, as long as we've had a good laugh. But next time, Terry, next time.